You wake up every morning with the same thoughts circling in your head. You distract yourself with noise, chase deadlines, scroll endlessly. But no matter what you do, you keep coming back to the same place, your own mind. You try to outrun your fears, silence your insecurities, bury your past, but it all follows you like a shadow. Why? Because it's not out there. It's in you, and the harder you try to escape, the tighter the grip becomes. What if the war you're fighting isn't with the world, but with yourself? What if the emotions you suppress, the patterns you repeat, the people you attract, all come from the same hidden place inside you? Carl Jung didn't just study the mind, he uncovered its secret architecture. And he taught us one undeniable truth. Your psyche is not something you can escape. It's something you must face, understand, and integrate if you ever want to be free. You can try to distract yourself with work, drown out your thoughts with noise, or numb your feelings with entertainment. But at the end of the day, you're always left with the same thing, your mind. It doesn't matter how fast you run, how far you travel, or how much you pretend. There's no escaping it. This isn't just poetic or philosophical talk. Carl Jung, one of the most influential psychologists of the 20th century, explained this in powerful terms. To him, the mind, or what he called the psyche, is the foundation of everything you experience. It's not just something you have, it's what you are. The psyche is not just your thoughts or your memories. It's your dreams, your instincts, your fears, your hopes, and even the parts of yourself you deny. Jung believed that the human psyche is composed of many layers, some conscious, but most unconscious. That's why no matter how much you think you know yourself, there's always more beneath the surface. He compared the psyche to a vast, mysterious landscape, most of which we've never explored. And no matter what you do in life, you're living inside that landscape. This is why you can't escape your mind. It contains your reality, your interpretation of the world, your reactions to people, your choices, your values. All of these arise from the psyche. You don't see the world as it is. You see it as you are. Jung once said, "Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakes." This line captures the heart of the problem. We keep trying to fix our lives by changing what's around us, but the real work happens by turning inward. The difficulty is that most people are afraid of what they'll find in there. Jung understood that the psyche isn't just filled with positive, beautiful things. It also holds the parts of ourselves we'd rather not acknowledge. The anger, the jealousy, the sadness, the wounds from childhood, the insecurities we try to cover up. And these parts don't just go away because we ignore them. In fact, the more we push them down, the more power they gain over us. Think of it like a house. If there's a room you never enter, eventually it fills with dust, shadows, and maybe even something dangerous. But it's still part of your house. Pretending it's not there won't change that. Jung believed that healing begins when you face those closed-off rooms, when you stop pretending and start listening. The mind can become a prison when we fear it, but it can also become a path to freedom when we understand it. There's also a spiritual side to this idea. Jung wasn't just a scientist. He deeply respected the mystery of life. He often spoke of the soul, the deeper part of the human being that's connected to something greater. Whether you believe in religion or not, Jung's message is clear. You are more than your daily worries, your social identity, or your routine thoughts. Beneath all of that is a timeless, living presence that we often overlook because we're too busy trying to escape discomfort. The irony is that everything we're running from in life, fear, loneliness, insecurity, is rooted inside us. And everything we seek, peace, clarity, wholeness, is also found there. The outside world can reflect these things, but it can't create them. That's why the same person can travel the world and still feel empty, while another can sit in silence and feel deeply fulfilled. Jung didn't believe in quick fixes. He believed in the long, often painful journey of self-discovery. And the first step on that path is accepting that you live with your mind, and always will. You might as well get to know it. When people talk about personal growth, they often imagine adding things. More success, more knowledge, more confidence. But Jung saw it differently. He believed true growth comes from integration, from recognizing and including every part of your psyche, even the messy ones. This requires courage, not because the mind is evil or broken, but because it's deep, and depth always demands honesty. So can you escape your mind? Number. But maybe that's not a curse. It's an invitation to explore the truth of who you are, to stop running, and to begin listening to the one voice that's been with you your entire life, your own. Most people believe they are fully in control of their thoughts, choices, and behaviors. We like to think of ourselves as conscious beings, always making rational decisions and knowing exactly who we are. But Carl Jung shattered that illusion. He believed that what we call consciousness, our day-to-day awareness, is only a tiny portion of the full mind. In fact, it's just the tip of the iceberg. Beneath it lies a massive, unseen force, the unconscious. Think about an iceberg floating in the ocean. What you see above the water is just a small fraction. The bulk of it lies hidden beneath the surface. This is how Jung viewed the psyche. Your conscious mind, the part that thinks, reasons, and speaks, is what you show to the world. But underneath it are layers of hidden drives, forgotten memories, buried emotions, and instincts that quietly shape your every move. Jung didn't invent the idea of the unconscious. Sigmund Freud talked about it too, but Jung expanded it. He didn't just believe in a personal unconscious, which includes your own forgotten or suppressed experiences, but also in something even deeper, the collective unconscious. This is a storehouse of universal patterns, inherited from humanity's shared history. According to Jung, you carry inside you ancient emotional imprints and archetypes that influence your thoughts, dreams, and behaviors, even if you've never been aware of them. So why does this matter? Because it explains why you sometimes feel things you can't explain, why you react emotionally without knowing why you're drawn to certain people or stories or symbols without ever being taught to like them. Much of what you experience is not being decided by your rational mind. It's rising up from the deep. This is a humbling realization. We are not as in control as we think we are. But Jung didn't see this as a reason to panic. He saw it as an opportunity to grow. Once you understand that there's more to you than your thoughts, you can begin to explore those hidden depths. That's where real transformation begins. One of the most important things Jung said is that people don't see the world as it is. They see it through the lens of their own unconscious material. This means your unresolved emotions, childhood wounds, and deep fears aren't just inside you. They're affecting how you see everyone and everything around you. If you were hurt as a child and never healed, you might distrust others without realizing why. If you were taught to be ashamed of your emotions, you might suppress them, only to have them explode in unhealthy ways. That's why simply trying to think positively or stay motivated often doesn't work. You can't solve unconscious problems with conscious thinking alone. You need to go deeper, to ask, what's underneath this reaction? Where did this pattern begin? Jung believed that self-awareness isn't about knowing your favorite color or personality type. It's about facing what's hidden, what's uncomfortable, and what's been left unexamined for years. This doesn't mean the unconscious is bad or dangerous. On the contrary, it holds incredible potential. Jung believed that your unconscious mind carries not only your pain, but also your creativity, intuition, wisdom, and spiritual power. It's the source of dreams and symbols. It's where your deepest truths live. When you begin to uncover it, you don't just fix yourself. You awaken to your full human potential. But this awakening requires effort. It asks you to become a student of your inner world. Pay attention to your dreams. Notice your emotional triggers. Reflect on your behavior, not with judgment, but with curiosity. Ask yourself, what part of me is trying to speak right now? This is how you begin to expand your consciousness, by learning to listen to the unconscious. Jung called this lifelong process individuation, becoming whole by integrating the known and unknown parts of yourself. And it all begins with this simple, powerful truth. You are more than you think. You are more than your thoughts, more than your habits, more than your conscious mind. You are a vast, layered being with depths still waiting to be discovered. So yes, consciousness may be just the tip of the iceberg, but imagine what lies beneath. Imagine the wisdom you haven't yet touched, the strength you've forgotten, the stories your soul is still trying to tell. You don't need to escape your mind, you need to explore it. And what you'll find down there might just change your life. There's a part of you that you rarely talk about. You push it down, deny it, ignore it, or even pretend it doesn't exist. It's the part that feels jealous when someone else succeeds, the part that gets angry, bitter, or selfish, the part that might be lazy, anxious, insecure, or even cruel. Carl Jung called this hidden side of the personality the shadow, and he believed that until you face it, it controls you from the dark. The shadow isn't evil. It's not something to be ashamed of. It's simply the collection of all the thoughts, feelings, and behaviors that you consciously or unconsciously have decided are unacceptable. It begins forming in childhood, when you were told, don't cry, be nice, don't be angry, or that's not how good boys or girls act. You began to push certain parts of yourself out of the spotlight. You wanted to be loved, accepted, and safe. So you learned to hide anything that didn't fit the mold. But those parts didn't disappear. They just went underground, into the unconscious mind. That's your shadow, and it doesn't just sit there quietly. It leaks out in strange ways. When you overreact to small things, when you judge others harshly, when you sabotage your own goals or feel overcome by emotions you can't explain, that's often your shadow showing up. Jung believed that if we don't consciously acknowledge our shadow, we start seeing it in other people. This is called projection. You might dislike someone because they remind you of something you've rejected in yourself. You might accuse others of being controlling, weak, arrogant, or selfish, when deep down a part of you has those traits too. The shadow loves to hide in our judgments. Here's the most important thing. The shadow is not your enemy. It's a part of you that longs to be understood. Beneath every negative trait is a positive energy that was never given a healthy outlet. Anger might hide a deep sense of justice. Jealousy might cover up your unlived potential. Laziness might point to exhaustion or the fear of failure. When you ignore the shadow, it becomes toxic. But when you face it with courage, it becomes a source of power. Jung didn't say this work was easy. Shadow work requires honesty. It means asking questions like, what am I avoiding about myself? What do I criticize in others that I might fear in myself? What parts of me am I ashamed of, and why? These aren't comfortable questions, but they're life-changing. They bring light to the darkness. Think of it like exploring a cave. At first, it's scary. You don't know what you'll find. But the deeper you go, the more treasures you discover. And slowly, you begin to feel more whole. You stop pretending to be perfect. You stop fearing your own emotions. You begin to understand yourself, not as a fixed personality, but as a complex, evolving human being with many layers. Shadow work isn't about becoming someone new. It's about reclaiming who you already are. All those disowned parts are still part of you. They contain your strength, your truth, your vitality. When you welcome them back, you feel more alive, more real, and something magical happens. You start accepting others more, too. When you make peace with your shadow, you stop needing to project it. You stop judging people for being human. Compassion grows. Jung believed that true freedom comes not from pretending to be pure, but from owning our inner contradictions. You can be strong and vulnerable. You can be loving and flawed. You can be light and dark. The goal is not perfection, it's integration. And integration leads to wisdom. This process of meeting your shadow isn't something you do once. It's a lifelong journey. The unconscious is always shifting, always revealing new layers. But each time you turn toward what you fear, you grow. Each time you face what you've hidden, you heal. You can't escape your mind because the parts you run from are already inside you. But you can turn toward them. You can invite them in. And in doing so, you don't just understand your mind. You become whole. You may think of yourself as one single person with one personality, but Carl Jung had a radically different view. According to him, your mind is not a singular voice, it's a chorus. Deep within the unconscious, there are ancient characters at play, universal patterns of behavior, emotion, and thought that shape how you see the world and how you live in it. Jung called these internal characters archetypes. And they're not just ideas. They live inside you. Archetypes are psychological blueprints. They aren't inherited memories, but more like emotional instincts and symbolic frameworks that all humans share. They show up in myths, religions, fairy tales, and movies across cultures and time periods. But more importantly, they show up in you. Whether you realize it or not, archetypes influence how you relate to your family, how you fall in love, how you face fear, how you seek meaning, and how you define yourself. One of the most powerful archetypes is the persona. This is the mask you wear to fit into society. It's the version of yourself you present to the world, the polite, controlled, acceptable version. But the persona is not the full story. It's a performance. It helps you function in social settings, but if you believe it's the real you, you can become disconnected from your true feelings. Many people live through their persona for years, forgetting who they are behind the mask. Then there's the shadow, which we've already explored, the part of you that holds everything you deny or repress. But Jung identified many other archetypes as well. The anima and animus, for example, represent the feminine and masculine qualities within each of us. If you're a man, the anima is your unconscious feminine side. If you're a woman, the animus is your inner masculine. These archetypes influence how you relate to the opposite gender, but more deeply, they help you develop emotional balance and inner harmony. There's also the hero, the part of you that longs to overcome challenges, to stand up, to prove yourself. The hero shows up in moments of struggle when you push through pain or rise after failure. But if you over-identify with the hero, you may develop a savior complex, always needing to win or fix others. The key is not to let any one archetype dominate you, but to become aware of them all and allow them to guide you when appropriate. One of the most mysterious archetypes is the self, not the ego, but the deeper, whole version of you that includes every part of your psyche. The self is your inner guide, your compass, the center of your personal development. It is not just a private identity, but a spiritual presence. According to Jung, your life's purpose is not just to succeed or be happy. It is to become yourself. And that journey involves meeting and integrating the archetypes that live within. This is why you sometimes feel like different people at different times. One moment you feel like a nurturing caregiver, the next you feel like a rebel. Sometimes you feel like a wise elder, other times like a lost child. These aren't contradictions, they're echoes of the archetypes. They aren't random moods. They are parts of the human experience trying to express themselves through you. Jung believed that understanding these inner figures brings you closer to wholeness. Instead of being controlled by them, you begin to work with them. You start to see your moods, your dreams, your desires not as random noise, but as messages from deep within. You begin to understand why you're drawn to certain people, roles, or stories. They mirror the archetypes you are living out or longing to explore. For example, if you're drawn to spiritual journeys, you may be influenced by the sage archetype, the seeker of wisdom. If you often feel the need to protect others, the mother or protector may be active within you. When you feel the need to break free and challenge authority, the rebel is speaking. These inner roles are not flaws, they're invitations to understand your mind more deeply. Jung taught that you can't escape these archetypes because they are you. They're the ancient language your soul speaks. But when you become aware of them, you gain a kind of inner fluency. You learn to listen, to respond, and to grow. You're not just a random collection of thoughts. You're a living story, a story filled with characters, turning points, and purpose. And once you begin to understand the archetypes within you, you no longer feel like a stranger to yourself. You begin to feel guided, like your mind isn't a trap, but a sacred path that's always been trying to lead you home. Have you ever met someone and instantly disliked them without a clear reason? Or found yourself overreacting to a small comment someone made? Maybe you've accused someone of being selfish, only to realize later that you were the one acting out of self-interest. These strange emotional reactions aren't accidents. Carl Jung called this powerful and often unconscious process projection. It's one of the mind's most subtle tricks, and one of the biggest reasons you can't escape yourself. Projection happens when you take qualities, feelings, or desires that exist inside you, especially the ones you don't like or accept, and unconsciously assign them to someone else. It's a defense mechanism. Instead of facing what's uncomfortable within, your mind places it out there onto the world. But what you're really seeing is a reflection of your own inner world, disguised as someone else's behavior. This is why Jung famously said, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves." That line cuts deep. We often believe our judgments about others are objective, but in reality, many of those judgments are projections, parts of our own shadow trying to make themselves known. For example, if you've suppressed your ambition because you were taught it's selfish to want too much, you might resent people who are driven and successful. If you're uncomfortable with your vulnerability, you might label someone else as too emotional. If you struggle with control issues, you may always see others as trying to dominate you. The mind projects what the ego can't accept. The problem is that when you project onto others, you stop seeing them clearly. You're not engaging with who they truly are. You're reacting to your own inner content. This distorts relationships. It causes misunderstandings, conflict, and emotional pain. Worse, it keeps you from truly knowing yourself. Because as long as you're blaming someone else, you don't have to look within. Jung believed that projection is one of the main reasons people struggle with personal growth. Instead of facing their own fears, wounds, or insecurities, they externalize them. They live in a world filled with enemies, annoyances, or toxic people. But what they're really seeing is a mind full of unexamined parts. It's not that everyone else is perfect. It's that your strongest emotional reactions often say more about you than about them. But here's the hopeful part. Projection can be your teacher. Every time you feel a strong emotional charge towards someone, a deep irritation, an intense admiration, or an overwhelming fear, you can ask yourself, what part of me is being activated right now? You may find that what you see in them is actually something resolved in yourself. This doesn't mean you're always wrong about other people. Of course, some behaviors really are harmful or selfish, but Jung invites us to slow down and look deeper. He asks us to reflect, why does this particular trait bother me so much? Why am I reacting so strongly? Often it's because we've disowned that same trait in ourselves. Think of projection as a mirror. The world reflects back to you what's happening inside. And if you're willing to use that mirror, you can grow in extraordinary ways. Each trigger becomes a clue. Each judgment becomes a map. Your emotional reactions aren't random. They're signs pointing to the parts of yourself still waiting to be seen, accepted, and healed. This is why escaping your mind is impossible, because even when you think you're reacting to others, you're really dancing with your own psyche. Your relationships, conflicts, even your heroes and villains, all of them are colored by your inner world. You carry your history, your wounds, your unmet needs into every interaction. Until you recognize that, you'll keep blaming the mirror for what's on your face. Jung believed that taking back your projections is a sacred act. It's the beginning of real self-awareness. It's how you stop being a victim of your own unconscious and start taking responsibility for your inner life. And with that responsibility comes freedom. When you reclaim your projections, something beautiful happens. You begin to see others more clearly, with compassion and nuance. You stop expecting them to carry your emotional baggage. You stop using them as screens for your own issues. And most importantly, you begin to reclaim the lost parts of yourself. So the next time you feel that spark of judgment or annoyance, pause. Ask yourself, what's really going on inside me? That one question can lead you back to your true self. Because in the end, the people you meet in the world are not just others. They're mirrors of your inner mind. And once you learn how to read those reflections, you no longer need to escape your mind. You begin to understand it, and through that, you begin to understand life. There's a part of us that always wants a shortcut to happiness, to success, to peace of mind. We try to escape discomfort, avoid confusion, and move quickly through anything that hurts. But Carl Jung offered a different path, one that doesn't promise speed, but promises truth. He called it individuation, the lifelong process of becoming your whole authentic self. And if you've been wondering how to escape your mind, Jung's answer is simple and profound. You can't. The only way out is through. Individuation is not about self-improvement in the usual sense. It's not about becoming more productive, more likable, or more popular. It's about becoming yourself, your complete self. That means not just living from the conscious ego, but integrating the unconscious parts of you too. The shadow, the inner child, the fears, the wounds, the forgotten dreams. All of it. Most people live on the surface of their lives. They identify only with their roles. The parent, the student, the worker, the friend. They think their thoughts and preferences are their identity. But Jung taught that who you think you are is only a small piece of the truth. Deep inside you, there's a greater self, something wiser, larger, and more mysterious. Individuation is the journey of reconnecting with that self. But this path isn't straight. It's not clean or easy. It requires that you face what you've avoided. It requires that you turn inward, even when it's painful. You have to walk through confusion, wrestle with your contradictions, and sit with emotions that might feel overwhelming at first. But something incredible happens when you do. You begin to heal. Jung believed that suffering wasn't always a sign of failure. It was often the start of transformation. Anxiety, depression, midlife crises, emotional breakdowns, they aren't just problems to fix. They can be signals from the psyche calling you inward, urging you to shed your false layers and discover what's real. The more you resist these calls, the more stuck and fragmented you feel. But the more you listen, the more whole you become. Individuation means that you stop chasing the illusion of perfection. You stop trying to become someone else's version of good enough. Instead, you begin the sacred task of becoming you. That includes accepting your flaws, honoring your emotions, and respecting the deeper rhythms of your life. It means recognizing that you are not here to imitate others. You are here to live out the unique story of your own soul. This doesn't mean you become selfish or isolated. In fact, the more whole you become, the more connected you feel to others. You begin to see that everyone else is on their own journey too. You stop judging so quickly. You stop competing. You start supporting, listening, and growing in relationship with others. Not by losing yourself, but by sharing yourself more truthfully. The goal is not to fix the mind, but to understand it, to explore it, to walk through its dark forests and shining fields, because only by going through it, through the layers of thought, emotion, memory, and mystery, can you come out on the other side as someone authentic, grounded, and at peace. Jung described individuation as a kind of spiritual rebirth, not religious necessarily, but deeply sacred. When you stop trying to escape who you are and start embracing every part of yourself, you begin to live a life of meaning. Not a perfect life, but a true one. Think of it like alchemy. You begin with lead, the raw, messy, chaotic parts of yourself. Through the fire of inner work, reflection, and acceptance, that lead transforms, not into gold you wear on the outside, but gold that shines from within. That's individuation. That's what it means to truly grow. So if you feel lost, anxious, or unsure of who you are, good. That means you're ready. Ready to stop running. Ready to stop pretending. Ready to meet yourself in all your complexity and beauty. Because the truth is, you were never meant to escape your mind. You were meant to explore it, understand it, and become whole through it. That's not an escape, that's a homecoming.